As I begin to share my forthcoming book, Awakening, in the final chapter of life, and then the book after that, the 7 spiritual laws of rebirth, as I share those books with you, and they're coming out very soon, I would also like to share with you some of the practices that I'm engaging in these days. So today I want to share with you Tibetan sleep yoga, what we might call rehearsing enlightened death every night. If you're courageous enough to explore it, then I welcome you to explore it with me. So each night as we lie down and drift into sleep, consciousness performs a quiet miracle. The familiar world dissolves. Body, identity, stories, even time itself. And yet awareness does not truly disappear. It recedes into a depth we rarely explore. The luminous ground, the Tibetan masters call the clear light of sleep. In most modern cultures, sleep is a biological necessity, a nightly shutdown for a fatigued brain. We turn off, recharge, and resume our lives as though nothing significant occurred in the interval. But the contemplative traditions of Tibet and parallel insights in Vedanta and Kashmir Shaivism offer a radically different proposition. Sleep is not a blackout. Sleep is a doorway. Sleep properly approached is rehearsal for enlightenment and rehearsal for death. Tibetan sleep yoga takes this seriously. It asks, what if the same awareness that recognizes a thought in meditation could remain present as we pass from waking into dreaming, from dreaming into deep sleep, and from deep sleep back into waking? And what if the transition into deep dreamless sleep is structurally identical to the transition we call dying? If this is true, then every night becomes a spiritual laboratory. And this is what I'm experimenting with, the spiritual laboratory. And I can assure you, it's a lot of fun. In classical Advaita, we speak of 3 states: waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and a 4th, Turiya, the ever-present awareness that pervades them all. The Tibetan bardo teachings mirror this with exquisite detail. There is the bardo of dying, the gradual dissolution of the body and sense faculties. There is the bardo of the dharmata, a luminous, groundless clarity where the nature of mind reveals itself. There is the bardo of becoming, an imaginal phase in which karmic tendencies crystallize into a new form of life. If you listen carefully, you can hear an echo. Falling asleep mirrors the bardo of dying. The senses dim, thoughts loosen, identity softens. Deep dreamless sleep mirrors the bardo of dharmata. Appearances cease and only pure potential remains. Dreams mirror the bardo of becoming. A subtle world arises from conditioning populated by figures, narratives, and emotional climates. From this perspective, sleep yoga is not a curious esoteric hobby. It is a disciplined way of using the micro bardos of each night to prepare for the macro bardo of death. It's becoming a hobby for me. The essential insight: awareness does not sleep. There is a simple but profound observation at the heart of these teachings. The nervous system sleeps, the body sleeps, the narrative me sleeps, awareness does not. In ordinary experience, we identify so completely with the waking persona that when it dissolves, we take awareness itself to be gone. But what actually disappears is only a configuration, a pattern of thoughts, memories, and sensations. Awareness, the open space in which those patterns arise, does not disappear. It is merely unoccupied by the usual furniture. I often describe consciousness as a theater. In waking, the stage is crowded, actors, props, elaborate sets. In dreaming, the cast shifts and the lighting changes, but the play continues. In deep sleep, the stage is empty, but the theater has not burned down. The emptiness of the stage is not the absence of awareness. It is awareness without the show. Sleep yoga is the art of remaining present when the show ends. Death yoga is the art of remaining present when the theater itself changes. How do we begin to transform something as ordinary as going to bed into a path of awakening? The first step is deceptively simple. Change the view. Instead of treating nighttime as a break from consciousness practice, we treat it as the continuation of a 24-hour yoga. We replace the phrase, I am going to bed, with I'm entering retreat. We let the entire transition into sleep be framed as meditation, as pilgrimage into the unknown. Several practical shifts follow naturally from this change of view. Number one, sacralize the space. The bedroom becomes a small sanctuary, not austere, not dogmatic, but consciously arranged to evoke stillness and care. A small altar, a candle, an image of a teacher, a symbol of light. Our environment whispers to the nervous system. This is not only about rest, this is about remembrance. Secondly, desolidify the day. Before lying down, we briefly review the day, not to analyze or judge, but to see it as dreamlike. That intense conversation, that email, that moment of hurt or triumph, these are impressions in awareness, already fading, already insubstantial. We let the day become last night's dream. This desolidification prepares the mind to recognize the dreamlike quality of upcoming experiences in sleep. And three, plant the seed of intention. Intention is the bridge between waking and sleeping. We might silently say, as I fall asleep, may awareness remain clear. When the deep luminous stillness arises, may I recognize it as my own nature. We don't force this. We plant it gently, like placing a seed in fertile soil. What follows is a structure that actually you can practice without needing arcane detail. Think of it as a doorway rather than a destination. Lie on your right side, legs slightly bent, left hand resting lightly along the body or thigh, right hand supporting the cheek. This is the posture of the Buddha. At least that's what we're told, that he took this posture at parinirvana, a physical reminder that sleep and death can both be entered consciously, with dignity and grace. The point is not rigid imitation, it is subtle somatic cue. I'm entering this night as a practitioner, not as a fugitive fleeing experience. Bring gentle attention to your heart center, not anatomically, but experientially, in the middle of the chest. If it helps, visualize a small lotus of light right here, or a tiny radiant symbol like Om. Let it be spherical or simple, luminous, or like a lotus. The visualization is not the goal, it is a scaffold. We use it to make the heart feel like a home base for awareness. I call it Deepak home base. Rather than becoming absorbed in the image, shift your emphasis to the knowing of it. The same awareness that knows the lotus, knows the tingling of your hands, the sound in the room, the rhythm of breath. Rest in that awareness. Let the body breathe by itself. Let the image float in this open space like a cloud in the sky. For a few minutes, you're not trying to fall asleep. You're simply relaxing as awareness. Let images dissolve, preserving presence. As drowsiness naturally increases, allow the lotus or symbol to become softer, less distinct. Welcome the blur, but stay with the sense I am aware, not as a thought, but a subtle glow. At some point, there'll be a phase where thoughts fragment, images flicker, and start to lose coherence. The boundary of the body becomes vague. Most of us unconsciously panic at this threshold and grasp at something, an image, a thought, to feel secure. Sleep yoga reverses the usual reflex. Here we do not grasp. We let everything go and we trust awareness itself. The instruction then becomes, whatever appears or disappears, I remain as this clear, open knowing. If sleep carries you off, you allow it. There's no failure. The practice is in the gesture, the choice to accompany this dissolution consciously. Students often ask, how will I know if it's working? Well, the mind loves dramatic milestones, lucid dream, visionary experiences, meeting the clear light. But the early signs are gentle. They reveal themselves in shifts of tone rather than fireworks. You might notice falling asleep feels more like sliding into warm water than collapsing into a void. Nighttime anxiety eases. There's a background confidence that whatever happens, awareness is here. Dreams become a little more vivid, and occasionally within the dream, you sense this is a dream, even for a moment. On waking, you feel as though you're continuing from somewhere rather than starting fresh from nothing. These are important. They indicate that the continuity of awareness is beginning to be felt across state boundaries. The Bardo teachings tell us that this continuity is precisely what we need in the great transition of death. In time, some practitioners do report glimpses of a silent, radiant nothing, underlying both dreams and waking experience. These are encounters with what we might call the clear light of sleep. But we do not force it. We cultivate conditions and we let grace do the rest. So, sleep yoga is a rehearsal. Does it matter for the end of life? Yes, because death is not merely a medical event. It's a transformation of consciousness. As the body and senses dim, the usual reference points fall away, much like they do at night. The familiar world dissolves. In the Tibetan view, what emerges is an intense display of luminosity, a revelation of the deepest nature of mind. Most beings, unprepared, experience this display as overwhelming. Some faint, cling, react, and are quickly propelled into the next becoming. The opportunity to rest in that luminous ground for liberation passes unnoticed. By practicing sleep yoga, we teach the mind and nervous system a different reflex. When identity loosens, relax rather than grasp. When familiar landmarks vanish, trust awareness rather than panic. When luminosity of voidness arises, recognize it as home, not a threat. Deepak home base. Every night becomes a gentle rehearsal for the final letting go. Every transition into deep sleep becomes a miniature death, approached with consciousness and curiosity rather than fear. From a non-dual perspective, we could say sleep yoga is learning to die into the self again and again. So when the great dissolution comes, it feels actually familiar. As someone engaged with neuroscience and consciousness studies, I find it beautiful that contemplative insights about sleep are beginning to resonate with modern research. We know, for example, that during sleep, slow wave sleep, the default mode network so closely tied to self-referential thinking largely shuts down. Large-scale brain oscillations synchronize and metabolic activity decreases. Subjective reports, when they exist, often describe either nothingness or extremely sparse experience. From the contemplative vantage point, this is not just cortical downregulation, as it's called. It is a physiological correlate of a deeper truth. The personality we call I is not necessary for awareness to persist. The stage can be empty while the theater remains. Sleep yoga invites us to explore this territory experientially, not only descriptively. It offers inner phenomenology to complement the outer measurements of what we call polysomnography and EEG. So, when the brain lets go of self-referential processing, awareness is not lost. It is freed. Spiritual practice is not opposed to biology. It is a refinement of the way biology participates in awareness. The journey in and out of sleep is concrete, repeatable, measurable. It's a context in which to study and transform consciousness. So, simple reminder. Before sleep, review the day as dreamlike. Let each event be felt as a passing image in awareness. Fall asleep in a posture that's comfortable. It's usually called the lion posture, which I mentioned earlier. Feel the heart as a soft, luminous center. No struggle, only ease. And 3, as you drift off, silently affirm, whatever appears or disappears, I remain as awareness. You may sleep exactly as you did before. You may notice subtle changes. The point is not immediate transformation, but gradual re-education of the mind, teaching it that sleep is not the end of consciousness, but a thinning of the veil. In doing so, you begin to participate in the ancient insight of the stages, that waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and death are not separate compartments, but different textures of one continuum of being. The more familiar you become with that continuum, the less afraid you are of any of its phases, including what I call the final exit, the unicorn of unicorns. Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Lots of fun.